Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm very glad to be here today. Good afternoon, everybody. It's not an easy job to be the third speaker in a session of the afternoon session of 5 speakers, but I am really honored to be with such great 5 speakers, Islah, Lubna, Ramzi, and Frank, and really honored to be amongst all of you, dear friends and colleagues who are passionate about Palestine and what we can do today. I'm really thankful for SIGA, ISA University, and the sponsors, Dr. Sami Al-Aryan and his team, Fadi, Linda, Riyad, Buthayna, Imad, Yunus, everybody who is trying to make this happen today. Our session with the title, The Struggle for Palestine Empowerment Strategies, I'm speaking today about the media in particular. Palestine creating a media strategy. In the aim of one of the main aims of this conference, to empower people in Palestine and around the world toward realizing the essential elements for resolving the conflict and achieving the vital goals of justice, freedom, inclusion, and lasting peace. My name is Rawan Daman. I'm a Palestinian filmmaker and media consultant, and this is me in the digital world, filming and trying to do something in the media for Palestine. I was born in Amman, Jordan, to a Palestinian family and raised as a kid that I am Palestinian. And as a kid in the school, I worked with my sister for 6 years on oral history books, where we published 2 books on the oral history of Palestine. The second was The Expulsion in the Memory of Children, published in 1997, with tens of stories from people who were kids in 1948 between the age 8 and 16. Later, we participated in a chapter on this book in A Teen's Life in the Middle East book. But at that time, when I was at school, this is how media looks like. I remember these TVs, radios, and newspapers. Most of you here, maybe only the undergraduate students, won't recognize these media things. And this is when I entered Birzeit University in Palestine, where I did my undergraduate in media and sociology. I was in Birzeit only last week, spending 3 weeks as a voluntary teacher for the media courses there. And I'm talking to the undergraduates here at ISA University, utilize your every moment at the campus of any university. And here you are lucky to have such a wonderful campus and a wonderful library as well. I remember spending many hours at Birzeit Library, and the librarians there, till now they are there, they remember this girl that was reading all the time. At that time, I discovered the first pillar of what I would suggest today as the media strategy 4 pillars. And the first is to produce things. We lack content on Palestine in different languages, including also Arabic, but also in English, Spanish, French, German, Italian. And at Birzeit, I did my first mini documentary, Waiting for Light. It's available on YouTube. Everything I mention in this presentation is available on YouTube. It's a 10-minute documentary done in the Easter time, like this time, 18 years ago, in 2001, on a Christian family in Palestine. Not allowed, they live in Ramallah, and not allowed to go to the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem to celebrate Easter. And the film was on VHS at that time. I sent it to Milano Film Festival in Italy. And at that time, I got an email on the old Yahoo email. Gmail and Google did not exist. And the email looked like this. It was April, like this month, but 2001. And I got this email from somebody whom I didn't know, named Beniamino Sabeni. And he said, it's a long time that we are looking for contributions from young Palestinian authors, and I'm really happy that finally someone answered to our call. Every year they get at least 2 films from Israel. And at the end there's a note. I personally take the occasion to express my solidarity to your people and to its eternal struggle for its country. So dramatic in these days. I would be happy to give any help if needed. Don't give up. It meant a lot to a 22-year-old girl at Birzeit University graduating at that time. And I decided that this is what I will do for the rest of my life, to use media as an empowerment tool and strategy for Palestine. And I was lucky to be among the generation where we got YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Google, and all of this appeared at that time. I felt that we can have the whole world at the tips of our fingers. And this led me to the second pillar of this strategy, that is to make it accessible. It's not enough to produce things, but now it's much easier and cheaper to make it accessible. I was working with schools at that time and was asking Palestinian girls who are their Palestinian role model of women. And I was surprised that they don't have role model of current Palestinian women. And this is why I decided to do my first series on women pioneers, and I chose two Palestinians. One is Mrs. Tamam al-Akhal, who has been drawing for Palestine for the last 60 years. This is one of her drawings. She was expelled from Jaffa in 1948 when she was 14 years old. And she drew with her late husband, Ismail Shammout, wonderful pictures and drawings for Palestine. And this was my first documentary of 2 hours available only in Arabic. And the second is Salma al-Khadra al-Jayusi, who's famous in the West much more than Palestine and the East, because she translated 40 books from Arabic to English, and including modern Palestinian literature and novels. After doing those stories, I understood that our problem is with al-Nakba narrative. That's the main thing that we need to work upon. And I started saying that al-Nakba did not start in 1948 and did not end in 1948. Dr. Ilan Pape mentioned this morning the 1882 as the first time of the formal Zionism coming to the shores of Palestine. But in my Al-Nakba series, a 4-hour documentary available in 10 different languages on YouTube now, Spanish, Italian, French, English, German, even the sign language, including of course Arabic and English, I started from 1799 until today. And I was amazed that many Palestinians, when they talk about Al-Nakba, they get this symbolic old woman in front of the tent or the key. And I hated this. I didn't like it at all. This is not our Nakba. And I decided that I'll use this always as a symbol of Al-Nakba. And people get surprised. Is this the Palestinian Nakba? Yes, it is. Those boys were part of the Orthodox Jaffa school in Palestine in 1938. And as it's mentioned on the image itself, it was taken on the 15th of June, 1938. And at that time, I imagined those kids telling each other that we will have a reunion 10 years from now. We'll come again to our school and have a picture exactly like this one in our school. But 10 years later, in June 1948, the school is still there until today, but none of them is in Jaffa, and none of them can even visit their school. This is the Palestinian Nakba. This is what happened in 1948. It is available in Turkish language also, so I would like the Turkish people to watch Al-Nakba in Turkish language. And the most after Al-Nakba that I was very touched with is the Palestinians inside Israel, whom I found that their story of Palestinians Israelis is very complicated. They themselves even are not able to tell it in a very straightforward way. And I spent 2 years reading everything they wrote about themselves. I'd like to show you only 1 minute from this.
فلسطين أحمل الجنسية الإسرائيلية. إحنا ما رحناش محل، ما هاجرناش، إحنا مش لاجئين. نحن لم نختار المواطنة الإسرائيلية، هي فرضت علينا.
احنا جزء لا يتجزأ من الشعب العربي الفلسطيني.
والدتي دائما تقول انه بسمونا عرب 48 وبسمونا عرب الداخل، احنا عرب الوطن.
And I called them owners of the land because they are. And I'm very glad that Dr. Muhammad, who was part of this series when he was doing his PhD at that time, of part of this series. I think also it's very important when we want to produce and make it accessible is to study the Oslo, which was mentioned many times this morning and yesterday. But yet, to understand it, we need to understand the Egypt-Israel relation. And this is why there's 1 hour documentary that I did called The Bitter Peace, which is only archive and narration, telling the story of first Camp David. Let's watch 1 minute of this archive.
We came to Camp David with all the goodwill and faith we possess, and we left Camp David a few minutes ago with a renewed sense of hope and inspiration.
The Camp David Conference should be renamed. It was the Jimmy Carter Conference. As far as my historic experience is concerned, I think that he worked harder than our forefathers did in Egypt building the pyramids.
The whole thing. Then The Price of Oslo, which is a 2 hours documentary telling what happened really in 1993. As Dr. Hani al-Masri mentioned in the session before the lunch, the story started in 1974, and this is when the film really starts, because the 1993 did not start at that time. But during the 9 months, from January until September 1993, the Norwegian Foreign Ministry paid the whole expenses of the whole negotiations, having the Norwegians, Israelis, and Palestinians in Norway secretly. But till today, there is not a single document of a 1 minute of meetings from those negotiations of 9 months, even not a single image, even not a single video. And this makes our narrative very complicated. We don't have any document, any still, any video, and we are supposed to produce and make it accessible for our people to understand what happened. It is also available in Turkish language and Spanish and English. Producing 10 documentaries on Palestine, and I was privileged to work with Al Jazeera Media Network in Doha, Qatar for 10 years as a senior commissioner. And I commissioned 250 documentaries, 80 of them on Palestine. And at that time, I discovered the third pillar of our strategy that we need to work with is to advocate and use this material. And this is when we launched what Buthaina mentioned in the beginning of the introduction, Palestine Remix, PalestineRemix.com, which I was lucky to work with a wonderful team of freelancers and employees of Al Jazeera Network to create it. This is the main page in English and in Turkish. It's available in Arabic, English, Turkish, Bosnian, and also recently in Spanish. And the main idea of Palestine Remix that I was always telling my friends and colleagues like you to watch Al-Nakba 4 hours, Owners of the Land 5 hours, Bitter Peace 1 hour, and The Price of Oslo 2 hours. And then we'll meet again in a year or a couple of years, and I discovered that none of them watched the documentaries. And so I said, we need to find another way to get people into those documentaries. And the idea was to get excellent documentaries from different directors around the world, like Gaza We Are Coming, for a Greek director on breaking the siege on Gaza, going against the grain about Gideon Levy and how he was transformed to be against Zionism, Hunger Strike on the Palestinian prisoners in the Israeli prisons, all available in the different languages. Stronger Than Words, which I use always about the deaf community in Gaza Strip. It's all in sign language. The pain inside, on the new Israelis, the young Israelis who after the mandatory of the military service go to India or to Berlin, and what they say about the Zionism project and Israel. All those documentaries are available both in the video and in the text, which means It's searchable. You can write there the word Jerusalem and reach to every single place Jerusalem was mentioned within the documentaries, as the documentaries are on YouTube like a black box. But then you can go within those documentaries and find an extract, 1 minute from any documentary, mix and match with another extract from another documentary and build your own story and share it on social media. Even download the file and use it in your university class or in your PowerPoint for your students. And we managed to get Palestine Remix as an educational tool in many universities around the world, especially in America, in Europe, in East Asia, and in the Arab world. And we are having, for the last 5 years, around 1,000 new visitors every month from the students themselves, undergraduates and postgraduates. Al-Shabaka, إعلامية, has been using it for a long time in Holland as well. And so it's available in Arabic, in Bosnian, and in Turkish. All the documentaries about Palestine. Recently, we did all of them in Spanish, and they are available on YouTube. And for the last 3 years, working as a freelance, I was thinking, what's next? We had to advocate things, we had to market things more, but is there anything new we need to produce? And I found out that yes, animation is a big thing. We need, as Palestinians, to be there. And this is why we did a 7 minutes animation in both Arabic and English called the Balfour-like Declaration, which we used as the story of Palestine for the kids at schools from 1799 until today, and as well as virtual reality, 360. We did with the team in Jerusalem, stories about the life inside Jerusalem in 360 virtual reality. I wouldn't need to tell you how many Zionist projects are there in the virtual reality and how rarely you have the word Palestine even in an index for the virtual reality. But to do this, to produce, to make it accessible, and then to advocate is not enough. We need to network. There is some experiments that we did with the International Forum for Palestinian Media and Communication. We were very happy to have Dr. Al-Aryan in our last conference attending here in Istanbul. We have been doing this conference every 2 years, once in Istanbul. And we launched also the Media Creativity Award for Palestine, which I initiated and I was a jury member last year, trying to convince Palestinians, pro-Palestinians, to do creative work for Palestine, not only to do work for Palestine. And later I discovered, not like as a kid, when I was so fascinated that we have for the first time YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram later, and Google, I discovered that as a kid, they are all as the monopoly we were playing when we were children. They are monopolies, and they are also tools that the Zionist project use also to suppress our voice. But we are the one person in the red color. We can do something, and we should. And this is why what I suggest for this conference maybe and for other organizations connected to the conference is to use the Palestine's media strategy 4 key goals. The first is producing evidence, to produce and continue to produce high quality, relevant, long shelf, up-to-date, systematic print, audiovisual, and interactive digital material based on in-depth research and clear evidences to inform. Many of our media about Palestine is news-oriented and not long shelf, and this is a real problem. And the second goal is making our evidence accessible. To make it accessible and useful to everybody, everywhere in the world, to utilize the huge content we have available for different audiences, different content based on language, age, and interest. Advocate for this evidence, to use this media content widely in all our gatherings, conferences, platforms, discussions. This is really a problematic issue. Many people in this hall do not know that this content do exist, although they are interested about Palestine. To market it and become informative, entertaining advocates for evidence-informed decisions on Palestine. To build an effective and sustainable networking body, to be a diverse, inclusive, and transparent international networking body that effectively harness the enthusiasm and skills of our people to make optimal use of our media resources. Nowadays, you don't need to be a media person to be part of the media strategy. whether you can produce or make it accessible or advocate using it or be part of the network. Any of us in this hall and all over the pro-Palestine can be part of a media strategy. It's no longer only for media people. Palestine is still there. Yes, the Zionist project managed to erase its name from the atlas of the world, but in the digital world, we can get it, and we can get it in the right way, so the world will know about what's happening in Palestine, what happened, what's happening, and what should change. I do believe that trusted media content, accessible, can get us free Palestine. Thank you very much.